Seats. All right. First, I'd like to I'd start this meeting by acknowledging the homeland of the 30 First Nation communities of this area, where we live, work, and learn. Important decisions that we make here at the FERD table can affect First Nation communities and Indigenous peoples and organizations in many different ways, both today and into the future. So as part of our collective responsibility, I commit that we continue to examine all this work that we do to ensure that our projects, our plans, our initiatives, and our discussions are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and above all, reconciliation. With that in mind, I'd like to call the meeting to order. The first item is Kinnaman.
Looking for approval of the agenda and late items. And I would just note that we need to withdraw item 4.1 as unfortunately our delegation was unable to make it at the last minute.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
That change. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Clute. Let's hope they didn't get stuck in traffic. Yes, okay. All in favor, opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item is Kinnaman.
Item 5.1 is the draft Fraser Valley Regional District Board meeting minutes of May 18th, 2023.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Popo, seconded by Director Pranger. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
Next item is item 6, which is committee minutes for information and matters arising. Happy to separate any of those items out.
And any questions, directors, on any of the items for information? Don't see any. Next item.
7.1 is amendment to Fraser Valley Regional District 2023 to 2027 Financial Plan Bylaw number 1697.
Thank you. That's moved by Director McElhonick, seconded by Director Ross. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, the item carries. Next item.
7.2 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Actively Creating an Exceptional Society in Electoral Area C.
Thank you. Board's wishes. It's moved by Director Wardenberg, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
7.3 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Baker Trails Mobile Home Park in Electoral Area E.
Thank you. It's moved by Director McElhonick, seconded by Director Clute. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
7.4 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Columbia Valley Fire Department Association in Electoral Area H.
Thank you. That's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Horn. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
7.5 is the 2023 grant and aid request for the Cultus Lake Fire Department Association in Electoral Area H.
Right on cue there. It's moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Parkman. Discussion. Hearing
Dixon.
none. Oh, go ahead, Director Dixon.
Just really quickly, just really happy to support both the fire departments in Area H. They do great work. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
8.1 is Fraser Valley Regional District Board of Variance Establishment Bylaw number 1704.
All right, motion number 1, it's moved by Director Horn, seconded by Director Facio. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. Motion number 2, it's moved by Director Popo, seconded by Director Dickey. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, if any, item carries. And adoption is moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Mercer. Discussion. Director Horn.
Thank you. Just through you, Mr. Chair, staff, seeing that this is likely to pass tonight, what would be the timeline for advertising recruitment of members and coming back to the board with some names?
Let's get them in.
Yes, I think we'll have our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness, answer that question.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Horn. The FERD currently has a board of variance, and those members were appointed in 2021. The bylaw before you tonight is the establishment bylaw. We're updating it. The previous bylaw was outdated, was from 2008, and it had some housekeeping fixes that need to be done to it. And as I mentioned, we do currently have a Board of Variance, and that term expires in 2024, at which time we will be bringing more members to the board for your consideration.
Other comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
8.2 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1691 to correct mapping and typographical errors, improve definitions and regulations, and address other minor issues. There is a motion for your consideration.
Thank you. This is for EAs. It's moved by Director Dickey, second by Director Adamo. Discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
8.3 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Cultus Lake Park Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1672 to update parking regulations for First Avenue lots and building height regulations for Lakeshore. There is a motion for your consideration. Charlie.
Thank you. Motion number, this is the EAs, moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion? Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm happy to support this bylaw. Just a couple of comments. I really want to thank the community for their input in bringing this concern forward over the last little while. I know there's been a lot of discussion, and we had people turn out of the public hearing with different points of view. I think the lowering the height from 22 to 19 is going to make a difference, and we'll be taking a look at that. It's we've got the Cultus Lake Park Board resolution that supported it as well. We probably can't make everybody happy, but I really think this is a step in the right direction. And I wanted to be sure to thank people for bringing this forward. It made a difference, and your voices were heard. And as we move forward, perhaps there's more opportunities to take another look at the bylaw. But for tonight, just really pleased to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Dixon. Other comments? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Motion number 2 is moved by Director Dixon, seconded by Director Castle. Discussion? All good, all in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Next item is item 9, which is permits. And Chair Lum, I believe you have a script in front of you.
That's right. Pursuant to Part 14, Division 9 of the Local Government Act, this is the opportunity for the FBRD Board to hear from the public regarding the one development variance permit listed on the agenda for this meeting. Anyone who believes that their interests are affected by the proposed applications will be given the opportunity to speak. If you have any verbal comments with respect to this permit and you're joining us by Zoom on a computer or smart device, I'd ask that you please press the raise hand function. When it's your turn to speak, you'll be asked to unmute yourself. If you're joining us on Zoom by phone, please press *9, and this will notify staff you wish to speak. When you're prompted to unmute yourself, please press *6. Those of you wishing to speak are asked to begin your presentation by providing your name and address, which will be recorded and form part of our official record. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes and confine your remarks to the application at hand. Ms. Kinnaman.
Item 9.1 is Development Variance Permit 2023-03 to reduce setbacks at 59321 St. Elmo Road in Electoral Area B.
And are there any comments from the public regarding this development variance permit? Got one member of public in the chambers here, and Ms. Van Ness, anyone online?
We do have one member of the public joining us on Zoom tonight, so this would be your opportunity to provide a comment, to hit your raise hand function. And it does not appear there's any questions.
Sure, I'll just call for a second time. And a third and final time. Hearing none, what's the board's wishes? Director Dickey moved, and seconded by Director Adamo. Discussion. Director Dixon, did you have your hand up, or was that just to second the motion? Okay. Any comments from board directors? Seeing none, ready for the question. All in favor, opposed if any. Item carries. Next item.
Next is 9.2, which is a site-specific floodplain exemption permit 2023-01 for 40774 Taylor Road in electoral area G. And I just will remind Chair Lum that this one does not include an opportunity for the public.
Very well. What's the board's wishes? Do you have a mover and a seconder?
So moved, Chair Lum.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Castle, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion.
Dixon.
Hearing. Okay, Director Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick question. Obviously, I do understand the hardship and looked at the location of the proposed new home and things like that. Does the geotech report from Landtech, does that I guess excuse FERD from any liability should there be flooding in the future?
Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure. I think we'll turn things over to our Director of Planning and Development, Graham Danilus, on this question.
Mr. Danilus.
Thank you through the chair to Director Dixon. As a part of the floodplain exemption process, a covenant will be registered on the title of this property that contains safe, harmless, and indemnification provisions to protect the regional district should there be a future flood on the property.
Very good.
Thank
you. Okay, other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Motion carries. Next item.
9.3 is a special event permit for the Cultus Lake Triathlon in electoral areas E and H.
Thank you. We have a mover and a seconder, please. It's moved by Director Barkman and seconded by Director Siemens. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any? Item carries. Next item.
10.1 is the capacity funding agreement and sole source purchasing of planning and engineering services to assist with evaluation of the proposed Harrison Rise development.
Move, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Facio, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Director Horn, go ahead.
Just a quick comment to say that we've used a similar model in the past and mission to build capacity and that the system worked well.
Thank you, Director Horn. Other comments? Board directors? Seeing none, you ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
10.2 is the Dewdney Area Improvement District Agreement for Dewdney Regional Park.
Thank you. It's moved by Director Castle, seconded by Director Ross. All discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? The item carries. Next item.
11.1 is Agricultural Land Commission application for a non-farm use in the Agricultural Land Reserve at 59710 Lougheed Highway.
Thank you. This is EA's. It's moved by Director Adamo, seconded by Director Wardenberg. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Opposed, if any? Item carries. Next item.
11.2 is a 2023 UBCM meeting request from the June 2023 East meeting.
Thank you. And my understanding is that, sorry, this did come out of the East. So do we have a mover and a second? It's moved by Director Castle, seconded by Director McConick. Discussion. See, Director Horn, go ahead.
I'm glad to see this on our agenda. Mission has been asking for similar things. We've run up against some challenges. But I'm hoping that by virtue of us taking a two-pronged approach, we'll arrive at some clear criteria by which forest roads can be controlled or closed. And just to be clear, my understanding is here that we're talking about at extreme or at high wildfire risk, because extreme is the highest. And I'm assuming that in the actuality, this is referring to the extreme wildfire risk.
Ms. Kinnaman, the language says high, but I'm not sure if that is a turn of phrase or was meant to align with what the different risk levels are supposed to be, but perhaps you can let me know.
Perhaps I can, Chair Lum. This was not a motion that came from staff. It was from the floor. And so the electoral area directors had expressed concern. I'm not certain that there was an intention to align those two, as you said, the specific definitions of wildfire risk, but more just generally the extreme dry conditions that have been experienced so far this year, as well as other years where There have been concerns about the potential for wildfire in their communities and the seeming lack of desire for the province to make that choice to close those backcountry areas. So staff will be, if this is passed, staff would be requesting a meeting at UBCM, and representatives from the East Committee were planning to attend that meeting. And I believe they were also hoping that yourself as chair of the board would join them at that future meeting.
Follow up, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Go ahead.
So given the fact that this came from East Guy, I'm interested in whether there's an answer, whether or not we need to amend the motion or there's an understanding. High risk means it would likely be asked that we're closing for most of the summer. Whereas extreme risk is during things that we've seen like the heat dome or, those particularly sensitive times. So I don't know whether somebody from East can answer the question, but for me, it's material.
Okay. I see Director McAhonick, you've got your light on.
Yeah, so I mean, we've had drought conditions and I actually talked to my the fire chief today, and they've lifted the fire ban and we're anticipating high heat again. And then he talked to me and he said it makes it confusing for people for if we do have the bans or not, but we're like this year, as we look forward, they're anticipating and projecting very high heat for the summer. It's going to be in, so we want to be able to have that fire ban when we need it. So we probably should have we could probably talk to our fire departments and find out what specific risk level, but it's pretty tinder dry out there. We've had a little bit of rain, but it's way too late. So.
Okay. Thank you, Director McAhonick. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Lum. I think the CAO summed up the sentiments of the East very well. I don't think that the word high was intended to correlate with the actual phases or risk assessments. But if staff feel that it's worth an amendment to change that to extreme wildfire risk, as the person who made the motion, I would be supportive of that, but I don't think it's relevant.
I think we have some time too. So rather than if we don't want to necessarily put the East members on the spot right now, perhaps the next peace meeting, if they wanted to discuss this prior to, let's get the meeting request in first, and then that discussion can hash out maybe the level by which or the standard by which we want to ask the minister for a complete shutdown of the force. Director Donald.
Thanks through the chair to everyone. My understanding in this was that we would have the localized ability to change that. So high, extreme already means that the government would step in. That is their role. They jump in at the extreme level and do so regularly. However, with the smaller rural areas, the high level gives us the discretion based on the skill sets and the personnel around during the summer of our own localized fire departments. And that would give us the ability to change that, knowing that we have no help from anyone else at that time, including the government. So or the provincial government and the forestry, so that we would have the ability to do that. So I think high is fine to stay there. And then we will have more discussion about this as we move forward.
Ms. Kinnaman.
Sure. I was just going to further add that it was the intention of staff following the discussion at East that we would bring back a report to the East Committee in July with a little bit more information about that process and the support that may or not be available, may or may not be available from fire departments in the electoral areas.
Okay, and I see, I'm not sure who was first, but Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And for the record, Director Davidson was first, but I just was going to say that we've tried over the years to get the Forest Service roads closed during even extreme conditions, and they were denied. So I guess my thinking is perhaps if we, and now that we know we have time, if it was extreme, we might have a better chance than high, because they are, it's probably fair to say, hesitant to close the forestry roads to recreational users. So those are just my thoughts.
Thank you, Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. As we sort of discuss this a bit more, to me, I think what becomes a little bit apparent is that we don't really have any understanding of what criteria the province actually uses to drive whether or not backcountry gets closed. I mean, we could try to align this request to the risk categories that the province uses, but really, I think it just, the province is kind of a black box in this. So as Ms. Kinman mentioned, I think the meeting is key. And however this gets morphed, this particular motion gets morphed just to reflect to have that meeting, because fundamentally for me anyway, I think we're just lacking that understanding as to what specific criteria will the province hit on in order to determine whether anything gets closed or not. And we really don't know what that is right now. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Don't see any other comments. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed, if any, item carries. Next item.
Moving down to items for information and correspondence, 13.1 through 13.9. Happy to separate any of these items out. I would like to just draw your attention to item 13.5, the launch of the regional growth strategy story map. I've been advised by staff that that will be launching on June the 26th.
Perfect. Any comments or questions from directors on information items? No. Oh, Director Gibson, go ahead.
Are we on 13.2? Can I speak to that at this time, Mr. Chair?
Sure can, yeah.
I'm not familiar, being new here, on this partnership that's mentioned here, and I'm just wondering about as I look at the figures here, I'm just questioning the financial health of this organization, this partnership.
Are you talking about the Cascade Forest by any chance? What you're referencing 13.2, which is
business partnership.
Okay. I'm just
And
taking a stab at it.
Could somebody just clarify for me? It looks like the trend is not satisfactory, but perhaps I'm mistaken looking at the figures. Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Chairman.
sorry. So 13.2 is our whole statement of financial information, right? It's our whole regional district financial info, right? So I'm just trying to get clarity. You're talking about the community forest partnership?
Yes, item 5, investment in government business partnership. And
Okay.
there's some information detailed there, and I'm not familiar with it, and I wouldn't mind an elucidation if I could.
Sure. Okay, yeah, sorry. It's Ms. Kinnaman. I know that Ms. Lounsborough is away right now.
Sure. I'm not sure if our deputy CFO is prepared to answer any questions on the community forest. My understanding is that staff were going to be bringing forward a report on the community forest in September. So I don't know if that's of help to you at this point in time. I don't believe we have a staff representative on the community forest board, but they are not here this evening. If we had known there were questions on that item, I would have made sure they were in attendance.
You know, just looking at the figures, the income figures for 2021 are considerably higher than the income figures for 2022. So I'm just wondering why the dramatic decline. This is not a criticism.
No.
Just merely an observation of somebody who's looking at these minutes and these material for the first time. Thank you.
And Director Gibson, I can take a rudimentary stab at it because it is a community forest, and they do, which is selectively logged to provide a bit of revenue back to the business partnership, which is then split up into a number of different community groups across the our electoral area. So I see Director Adamo, he's gonna try and keep me from he's gonna bail me out here as I try and go through this. I will tell you, I just provided a letter, or sorry, some comments of support around how many grants that this was able to provide to local community groups out of that community forest. So I always looked at that business partnership as a bit of as a nonprofit that was there to see the communities realize some value out of that community forest. And my understanding is that, you know, it may vary from year to year based on the selected logging practices of the forest, but Director Adamo.
Through the chair to Director Gibson and everyone else for that matter, as a recipient of the funds through Area B, it's a three-way partnership between the District of Hope, Yale First Nation, and Area B. And it does fluctuate from year to year and based on a series of things. In the particular period that you're referring to, the criteria that affected the change in numbers was related to the heat dome that we had and the fact that they in fact did not log as much as they had logged the previous year. Secondarily, they also ran into some other issues. We had fires last year through the Laidlaw area where that was exactly where they were logging. So that's getting reflected on this year's numbers. And this year there is intention to log in another area through close to us where we'll have figures and that'll be increased again. And the other criteria or the other determining factor is they don't log if they don't meet a particular feasibility. So if, for example, forestry numbers are down, the cost of lumber is down, and there could be softwood related through the US border, things like that. They will not log that particular year. So they put money into that to take care of themselves, and they always maintain a 5-year program with which their funding is taken care of. So they're always staying ahead of the game, but some years they just simply won't log. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
Mr. Chairman, that's helpful. So the dramatic decline in income was not a surprise to anybody. Okay, thank you. That was the reason for my ask. I do appreciate it.
Well, I didn't even do too badly on answering that question there. Director Dickey, go ahead.
Thank you. Let me join the Stab in the Dark club here. Just wanted to point out the volatility in the income statements of forest companies. And a couple of years ago, the price of lumber was at $1,600. Today, it's at $350. And that's what is reflected in these income statements. As one year to another, there's such huge changes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Gibson, for throwing us a curveball on this one. It's good to talk about the community forest. I don't know that we have spoken about it at length at this table. So now we all know a heck of a lot more about the Cascade Community Forest. Any other questions? Are you sure? I want to point out one, and it's, don't worry, staff, it's just a thank you. It's the annual report is there, and I know a heck of a lot of work goes into the annual report. So thank you to all the staff that put that together. And the RGS story map. So I did provide some a comment on the launch of the story map, which I'm really, really excited about getting out to our communities. I know a number of our directors were excited about that too, learning about when story map was going to get launched. And so now we know. And thank you to all of our staff that put a lot of work into that. Other feedback on information items? Seeing none, next item.
Next is reports by board directors.
Thank you. Director Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 2 items. The first is I was fortunate over the last couple of days to attend the BC Transit workshop. It's a provincial workshop offered to their staff, their operating companies, and to local governments. And it was exceptionally well done and very educational. And I hadn't known about it in my role as an elected person, but I have to say it was well worth attending in that role, and would strongly recommend to folks that they watch for it at their municipal councils next year and send a rep if they can do so. It was extremely valuable, and I think what I learned there will help us when it comes to our regional transit planning, and I would encourage others to get the tools in their toolkit that it provides. The second thing I wanted to talk about was our ongoing challenges that arose some time ago. And we all saw Chair Lum's letter to the Lower Mainland District of the RCMP and I guess it was to the Minister of Public Safety and Solicitor General with respect to the change in services around BC Highway Patrol. And I was very heartened by the voices of all of our colleagues around this table at the RCMP Mayor's Forum recently, and Chief Superintendent Turton spoke at length about the changes. I can say that there were a lot more comments after her introductory remarks, and I think people expressed, not just from our region, but from Metro as well, a significant concern about this decision and about the consultation process. That prompted Mission Council to vote in favor of sending a letter, which we've done. And then very quickly, I think prompted by the two letters, we heard that Chief Inspector Turton will speak with community members, community leaders July 5th. Now, I won't be here for that, but I'm very hopeful that we will send a coordinated contingent. And I wanted to read just a tiny portion of the letter that we sent, because I'm hoping we will go there with a song sheet that is very similar and coordinated. In our letter, we asked three things. First, that the effective date of September 1st, 2023 be delayed so that local municipalities, local police services, and the RCMP Lower Mainland District can adequately plan for a safer transition, or for a safe transition, I apologize. Number two, that BC Highway Patrol and local detachments work together to achieve a clear and mutual understanding of their roles, the conditions for shared work, and a phased schedule for these changes to occur. And number three, that a clear method and timeline for assessing the new model is included in our collective planning, with resources for adjusting to any challenges along the way. I've sent that letter out to every mayor around the table and to the chair here, but it wouldn't have gotten here in time to be on this evening's agenda. And I just wanted to make sure that whether it's through a resolution or just an informal understanding, we have an opportunity to go to that meeting on July 5th with a very clear position and some folks who are articulate speakers on this behalf. I think it will take some strong representation. The two things I'll point out in our communication were that Chief Superintendent Turton's aim expressed in the July 5th meeting is to express what they will do, what will happen, as opposed to asking. And I don't think it's a time for pushing, but a time for pulling, a time for us to be asked what will work given our local detachment resources. And she indicated in that mayor's forum, we'll do what we can. And I think it's important for us to have a standard that's more clear. And then the second thing is really at the end of the day, this conversation that this is a decision driven by human resources needs within BC Highway Patrol and the impact it will have on the morale of Highway Patrol officers and the challenge they're having in recruiting officers, because in the messaging they're hearing from recruits, they don't want to come if they have to deal with the reactive stuff. And the message we've sent to them is that exactly will happen at each of our detachments now, whether they're RCMP or whether they're Abbotsford Police or any of the municipal police departments in Metro. And it's really truly downloading in a number of different ways. So I wanted to make sure that we're all going there and being very clear that we demand a process that is far more consultative and careful than what we're seeing. Because to wrap up my remarks, I would say that we've seen other challenges along the way in terms of how capital investments, decisions made at E-Division and CRTC and others have landed with us. But at least we can argue that those have added some value. Here, we're going to pay a bill locally and the service level will decline. And that's a very dangerous point in my perspective that we need to stand up and speak to because it is a pivot point for things that's going in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Horn. Director Mercer, go ahead.
Thank you. I just have two things, but I want to just a bit of a follow-up on Director Horn's comments. My intention is to be at that meeting as well. You know, I've since had the opportunity to, you know, relive or reminisce or go back over her comments. And I'm embarrassed to say it, but so many of them were flawed and inaccurate. I've also done some inquiries in elsewhere like Alberta, where the contract with the province is similar. In Alberta, they actually have highway patrol detachments, where this is what they do. It's the business of the highway patrol. What I've also learned is that back, I believe, the end of February, end of March, what the chief superintendent did was, in response to their challenges with these empty highway patrol units, was she actually wrote the province.
Solicitor General's ministry and provided them with 3 options as to how to resolve, help resolve their problem. One of them was the status quo, let it suffer until resources like every other police agency. And there was another one. And the third one was give all this responsibility to the jurisdictions the highways go through. And the Solicitor General's office just quickly jumped and said, yeah, we approve number 3. And that's where it started to go off the rail. You know, and I, you know, without belaboring it, but, you know, I remember, and I was just explaining to Director Shahal, when I was the president of the BC Association of Chiefs of Police, the retired chief of Delta confronted me about IHIT, and I was involved in creating the IHIT teams across the Lower Mainland. And his criticism was, and I'll paraphrase, but as he says, it's like, you know, we're colleagues and we're partners and you're building a bus, and when it leaves the depot, you're going to invite us on it. We don't want to get on it. We want to help you design the bus and build it, and then we'll get on it. And that's collaboration. The collaboration with the communities, all of which are here, is that we should have been involved in presenting to the solution. And if it had been asked differently, the outcome would have been differently with that honest and just and true collaboration. You know, and I spent a lifetime in policing and public safety. People that apply to go to highway patrol are a different DNA. I wasn't one of them. Didn't even know. I retired as an assistant commissioner, and I still didn't know how to write a traffic ticket. It's certain DNA that apply to highway patrols, and this is what they do. This is all nonsense that we're hearing about not being able to get people to apply because they're doing reactive policing, like nonsense. That's what they thrive to do. They prefer to do that than to work the patrol and take the B&Es and the domestics and the sudden deaths. It's in their DNA, and they're usually, when they go to these units, they're there for life. So I'm not buying any of it, but I'll be polite and constructive with her, but it's not my good books right now, and she knows it. Chair Lum, can I ask a question about something back as part of my report, just very quickly?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is that allowed? There was a discussion about high, low, extreme, and I can't help but think that for fires, and I can't help but think that, you know, we're not alone here, and the rest of the province is on the danger of burning up. So I can't help but think there's other regional districts and cities that are asking for the same types of authorities through elected areas. And I'm wondering if this is a UBCM issue that should come up. I can't help but think there's other EAs that are looking for that type of input into the backcountry that surrounds their elected areas as well.
Yeah, I think part of the reason that we request and that we want to request the meeting is because there's a little bit more information that we need to get out to solicit from the ministry and from the minister, perhaps about perhaps differences across the province. A lot of questions, I'm sure, for staff about if we're granted this authority, how would we enforce it? You know, with 8 conservation officers, you know, across the area, I'm sure there would be another one of those, pick option 3 and give all the authority to the regional districts, and then quickly ensure they have massive service areas and huge budgets on each of their local tiny communities to pay for enforcement. So I know all of our EAs are thinking about that already when we're being careful about what we want to ask the minister. But certainly I think it gives us a little bit of time to do our homework before we go ahead with the resolution per se. So I think the EA strategy is a very smart one to get the meeting and solicit a bit of information about what we're looking for. Thank you. I have Director Barkman.
Yeah, just a question to the chair on the comments that Director Horn. My question on the whole policing thing is, are we going to be controlling whatever we're responsible for, or patrolling? And if we're just
administrating things that they have. I think all our districts are a little different. And if we can control some of the things that's happening in our portion, I think somehow that should be brought forward in the discussion or wherever it goes.
Yeah, and what I might suggest is that Director Barkman, if you want to join a few of the folks that are going to be attending that meeting in a discussion here when we wrap up our meeting tonight, to get a bit more of an understanding about what is being asked for at that mayor's meeting, I think that'd be well in order. I don't have that answer at my fingertips, but I would suggest after we adjourn, grab Director Horn and Director Mercer and Director Popov, Director Pranger, Director Siemens, and have that discussion. Director Ross, go ahead.
Yes, just very quickly, this is the first meeting we've had since the FCM conference, and because there are only a few of us there, I think there was Director Mercer, Director Bartman, Director Pranger, and I don't think there was anyone else there. I just wanted to mention we do have a new president. His name is Scott Pierce. And I have to say, I'm very impressed with him. He's very genuine, has a passion for local government, hardworking, and his number one issue, which I very much appreciate, the biggest topic of conversation of the conference, was a new funding model for local governments. The model that we have today was first created in 1849, and it has not changed since. But our world has completely changed. You know, we only get 8 to 10% of the taxes collected, yet the downloading in all those years has been shocking, and we just can't operate this way anymore. So he is bound and determined to sit down, talk with the federal and provincial partners, and work on a new funding model. So yay, hope something comes of it.
Excellent, and thank you, Director Ross, and all the other directors and the staff who were able to attend the FCM on our behalf and have representation from the region. I think it's really important. So I appreciate you all taking the time out of your days to go and do that for us. I don't see any other director reports. Ms. Kinnaman, next item.
Next is public question period for items relevant to the agenda. We have one member of the public in our boardroom, and we also have some folks online. So perhaps we can turn things over to Jamie Van Ness.
Thank you, Ms. Van Ness. And I see our one member of the public certainly doesn't want to delay this meeting any longer. So he's shaking his head. He's smart enough to know that that's good. And Ms. Van Ness, any questions?
Thank you. We do have one member of the public still on the line, and this would be our opportunity to ask a question relevant to the agenda. Just hit the raised hand function. And it would appear we have no questions.
Thank you, Ms. Van Ness. Ms. Kinnaman, next item.
Looking for a resolution to close the meeting.
So, Mr. Chairman.
It's moved by Director Facio, second by Director Pranger. All in favor, opposed if any. Item carries.
Give us 2 or 3 minutes.
Couple minutes set up. Thank you.